Welcome back to the deep dive. So, I want to start today with a question,
Okay.
and I want you to be honest. When you look at the economy, I mean, the whole big picture,
Right. The massive skyscrapers, the multinational corporations.
exactly, the supply chains stretching across oceans,
Yeah.
do you feel powerful or do you feel kind of small?
I'm assuming that's a rhetorical question.
Completely.
Yeah.
Because I think most of us, if we're being real, we feel tiny.
Mm-hmm.
We look at these giant companies and we think, they hold all the cards.
Yeah.
They set the prices, they decide what's on the shelves, and we take it.
It's the natural assumption. I mean, visually, physically, these things just dwarf us. It's easy to feel like a cog in a machine someone else is driving.
Exactly. But today, we're going to flip that narrative completely upside down.
Okay.
We're diving into a text that argues that this feeling of powerlessness is actually an illusion, a total mirage.
Yeah.
It argues that the real boss isn't the guy signing the paychecks.
It's not the corporation.
It's you.
This is the whole concept of consumer sovereignty. And it's a core economic principle, but the text we're unpacking today, the sovereign consumer and the mechanics of competition, it takes it a step further.
How so?
It frames it not just as a theory, but as a power dynamic, a really brutal one, actually.
And to make this digestible, because let's be honest, mechanics of competition sounds a little dry,
A little bit.
we're going to follow the story of two characters the author uses. We have Annie, who is us, the consumer,
Right.
and we have Sean, the business owner. In the text, he sells lemonade.
A classic example.
It is, but the stakes here are way higher than a neighborhood stand. The mission today is to see how a simple glass of lemonade explains why businesses go bust, why your phone gets better every year, and why this terrifying concept of creative destruction is the engine of our lives.
And it all starts with a title. The author calls Annie the consumer the monarch.
A monarch, that's a heavy word. That implies, absolute rule. Kings and queens lopping off heads.
That's exactly the image the author wants to evoke. The central argument is that in a free, competitive market, the consumer sits on the throne.
So you don't just buy things. You govern.
You govern the market, and the mechanism of your rule, the scepter you wield, is what the text calls the dollar vote.
Okay, let's unpack that. The dollar vote. Because I'll be the skeptic for a second here.
Go for it.
When I go to the grocery store and buy a carton of milk, it doesn't feel like I'm casting a ballot. It feels like I'm running an errand.
Sure.
I'm just buying milk because I need milk. Do I really have sovereignty if I'm just trying to get through my Tuesday?
Yeah, that's a fair pushback, but think about what that purchase represents to the person selling the milk, or in our case, to Sean selling the lemonade.
Oh.
Every time Annie hands over $1 for a glass of lemonade, she's sending a very specific signal. She's basically saying, I approve of this business.
I want this to exist tomorrow.
I want you, Sean, to keep doing what you're doing.
So every purchase is a validation.
It's an election, a continuous rolling election that's happening every minute of every single day. By buying that lemonade, Annie is voting for Sean's survival,
She's voting for his employees to get paid.
for his rent to be covered, all of it.
And here's where that power dynamic gets really interesting. Because we usually think Sean has the power, right? He sets the price on the sign.
He decides if there's ice in the cup.
But the text says Sean is actually powerless.
Zero power. That's the author's stance. Think about the interaction. Let's say Sean is having a bad day, he's grumpy, snaps at Annie.
Or he waters down the lemonade.
Right, cuts costs, and it tastes like lemony dishwater. What does Annie do?
She doesn't start a protest. She doesn't file a lawsuit. She just walks away.
She exits. And that is the ultimate exercise of power. She takes her vote, her dollar, and she gives it to the competitor down the street.
She doesn't have to argue.
Her silence is the death knell for Sean's business. If she stops voting for him, his kingdom crumbles. Sean goes bankrupt.
It's kind of wild to think about it that way. We usually see businesses as these permanent fixtures. But this paints them as incredibly fragile. Sean is basically terrified of us.
Yeah.
He's sweating.
He should be. And that fear is important. The text describes Sean as being in a constant state of anxiety. He isn't sitting back counting his coins. He's sweating to keep his position.
Because he serves at the pleasure of the monarch.
And the monarch is fickle.
So let's look at what this anxiety actually produces. Because if Sean is terrified of losing Annie's vote, he has to do something.
He can't just stand there.
And the text breaks this down into 3 fronts of competition. It's like he's fighting a war on 3 sides at once.
Precisely. 3 distinct battlefields where he has to win every single day.
Okay, front number 1. The most obvious one, price.
Right. This is the one we all notice. Sean looks at his neighbor, let's call him Mike, who's also selling lemonade. If Mike is selling a glass for $1 and Sean tries to sell the exact same thing for $2, what happens?
Annie goes to Mike. Simple math.
Exactly. So Sean is forced to lower his price. But here's the nuance. He can't just lower it and lose money, or he's out of business.
Right.
So this price front isn't just about changing the number on the sign, it's a race for efficiency. Sean has to figure out how to squeeze the lemons faster, buy sugar in bulk, waste less ice.
He has to get better just to stay in the game.
Yes. But it's not just a race to the bottom, is it?
No, because if I see a glass of lemonade for 5 cents, I'm probably suspicious. I'm not drinking that.
Which brings us to front number 2, quality. The text says Sean has to make his product tastier, more reliable, or more beautiful.
This sounds like a trap for Sean.
How so?
Because usually, making something better costs more money. If he buys organic lemons or fancy crystal glasses, he has to raise the price. But he just spent all his energy trying to lower the price.
That is the squeeze of the market. You've identified it perfectly.
It's stuck.
He's under immense pressure to raise quality without raising the price. Or at least without raising it more than the value he's adding. He has to offer a superior experience just to keep Annie's attention.
So he's constantly tweaking the recipe, polishing the counter, smiling wider.
Trying to win the vote through excellence, yes.
So he's squeezed on price, squeezed on quality. But then there's the third front, and this is where the text gets really interesting. Innovation.
This is the most dangerous front for Sean and the most beneficial for Annie. It's not enough to be cheap and good.
You have to be new.
You have to solve problems Annie doesn't even know she has yet.
The author uses this really whimsical example here that I got a kick out of. They talk about the pressure to invent lemonade that doesn't melt in the sun.
It's a fantastic image, isn't it? Non-melting lemonade.
It sounds impossible.
It does, but think about what it represents. It represents the unknown. Sean is lying awake at night thinking, what if someone invents a way to keep this drink cold for 3 hours? What if someone invents a self-refilling cup?
And the scary part for Sean is that he doesn't know who is going to do it. It could be Mike next door.
It could be some kid in a garage 3 towns over.
Exactly. Innovation is the threat of obsolescence. If Sean is just doing the same thing he did yesterday, he's already falling behind.
So he has to invest in R&D. He has to take risks. He has to try to invent that non-melting ice, even if he fails 10 times.
Because if he doesn't, someone else will.
Right.
Okay, so let's just take a step back and look at Sean's life. He has to be cheaper than the guy to his left. He has to be tastier than the guy to his right. And he has to be inventing sci-fi lemonade to stop some unknown person across the street who might do it first.
That sounds exhausting.
It's grueling. It is a high-stress, high-stakes existence.
But for Annie.
For Annie, it's paradise.
Yeah.
Because of Sean's stress, she gets cheaper lemonade, better lemonade, and constantly evolving lemonade.
Yeah.
His anxiety is her luxury.
I want to pause here, because this is where the conversation usually gets a little too cheery. We say, better products.
But we have to talk about what happens when Sean loses. Because he can't win on all 3 fronts forever. Eventually, someone is going to beat him.
Yes. And this brings us to one of the most famous and maybe most misunderstood concepts in economics.
Creative destruction.
Exactly.
The text gets pretty vivid here. It moves away from the lemonade stand for a second and gives us a transportation analogy.
Yeah.
So let's stick with our friend Sean. Suppose he's not selling lemonade anymore. He's delivering it.
Okay.
And he's old school. He uses a horse and buggy.
Right. A horse-drawn delivery service. It's romantic. It works. He has a stable. He feeds the horse. He knows his route. He's been doing it for 20 years.
It supports his family.
For sure.
And then the competitor shows up. And this competitor isn't using a horse. They bought an electric scooter or a drone.
The scooter is faster. It doesn't need to be fed hay. It doesn't get tired. It requires way less maintenance.
So the competitor can deliver 10 times the lemonade at half the cost. So let's play this out. Annie, the monarch, looks at her options. She can pay Sean $10 to get her lemonade in an hour by horse.
Or she can pay the scooter guy $3 to get it in 10 minutes.
And Annie chooses the scooter.
She casts her vote for efficiency.
And what happens to Sean?
This is the hard truth. Sean goes out of business. The text is very clear on this. It doesn't say Sean adjusts. It implies his livelihood, the horse business, is destroyed.
See, that's where I just feels cold.
Yeah.
We're talking about a guy's life here. He didn't do anything wrong. He just got old. Can't we save him?
Well,
Can't the government step in and say, hey, we value horse-drawn delivery. Let's give Sean a subsidy so he can keep his job?
we could. And societies do that all the time. But the author argues that if we do that, we're committing a grave error. We would be subsidizing inefficiency.
Explain that.
Yeah.
Subsidizing inefficiency.
If we pay Sean to keep using the horse, we are effectively paying to keep things slow and expensive. We're punishing the innovator, the guy with the scooter, and we are punishing Annie, who has to pay higher prices or taxes to keep Sean afloat.
So the destruction of the horse business is necessary.
It's necessary for the creation of the scooter business.
The horse must die for the scooter to live.
In an economic sense, yes. The resources tied up in the horse, the labor, the feed, the stable, they need to be released so they can be used for something better. It's harsh for Sean in the short term, no question. But the argument is that this process is the only way the standard of living rises for everyone else.
Right. If we protected every candle maker, we'd never have light bulbs.
If we protected every scribe, we'd never have the printing press.
It's a structural necessity of progress. It's easy to say when you're Annie holding the light bulb, but tough when you're the candle maker holding the pink slip.
Absolutely. And that tension is real. But the text asks us to look at the alternative. What happens if we stop the competition? What if we protect Sean completely?
Right. Let's flip the coin. We've talked about how stressful competition is for Sean.
Mm-hmm.
But what if we took that stress away? What if we gave Sean exactly what he probably dreams about in those cold sweats? A world with no competitors, a monopoly.
The what-if scenario. The text asks us to imagine Sean is the only game in town. No electric scooters, no Mike next door, just Sean.
Now, my instinct is to say, well, Sean's a good guy. He'll still make good lemonade. But the text paints a pretty grim picture of his personality change.
It's not about his personality, it's about incentives. The text argues that without competition, Sean stops trying. Why would he?
Because he has pride in his work.
Maybe for a week, but look at the mechanics. If he raises the price to $5, what's Annie going to do? Go somewhere else.
She can't. There is nowhere else.
So he raises the price.
And he stops being nice.
Exactly. If he's having a bad day, he doesn't have to fake a smile. He can be rude. He can make you wait. He holds the power now. The monarch has been dethroned.
And the product itself. The text uses a really specific, almost visceral phrase here. It says he starts selling sourness or acidity.
Selling sourness. It's a metaphor for the degradation of quality. He stops sweeping the floor. He uses the lemons that are a little bit overripe. He cuts corners on the sugar.
He sells a product that's barely drinkable.
Simply because he knows Annie is thirsty and has no other option.
That is a huge contrast to the Sean we saw earlier, the one who was trying to invent non-melting ice. It's almost like he's a different person.
It's the same person, but in a different system. And the text makes a profound point here. Competition is like a gym. It's the force that keeps Sean toned.
It keeps his business muscles working.
And without it, he becomes flabby and lazy. Not because he's evil, but because he's human. We tend to follow the path of least resistance.
There's a quote in the source, an internal monologue they attribute to Sean in that competitive market. It's the question he has to ask himself every single morning to survive.
What is it?
How can I please Annie more today than yesterday?
That's the mantra. How can I please Annie more today than yesterday? And notice, he doesn't ask it because he loves Annie. He asks it because he fears the guy with the scooter.
That's the key, isn't it? It's not altruism, it's survival.
Precisely. The market system harnesses Sean's self-interest, his desire to stay in business, and forces it to serve Annie's interest. He must serve her to save himself.
So let's zoom out and look at what this all means, because we started this conversation talking about power. And we often complain about competition in the real world. We say it's cutthroat, it's stressful.
It's chaotic. We feel bad for the mom and pop shop that gets crushed by the big box store.
We do. And that empathy is natural. We see the destruction. It's visible. The closed sign in the window is visible.
But the text argues we're missing the invisible part.
And the invisible part is?
The invisible part is the benefit to Annie. The cheaper prices, the better technology, the fact that you have a supercomputer in your pocket. The synthesis here is crucial. That stress Sean feels, that anxiety, that is actually the sound of the system working for you.
It's the friction that polishes the diamond.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
I want to take a minute to just recap where we've been, because this journey from a simple glass of lemonade to the structure of the global economy is really fascinating.
It is. We started with the definition of power. We established that despite the size of corporations, Annie the consumer is the monarch.
She rules through the ballot box of her wallet.
Right. But that rule isn't passive. it forces Sean to fight on those three fronts.
Price, quality, and innovation. He has to be cheaper, better, and more creative just to survive the day.
And we learned that this survival game inevitably leads to creative destruction. The horse must die so the scooter can live.
It's harsh for the horse driver,
Yeah.
but it's the engine of efficiency for society.
Mm-hmm. And finally, we saw the nightmare scenario of what happens when that engine stalks. When Sean has no rivals, the discipline just evaporates.
It becomes a tyrant. He sells us sourness and charges us a fortune for it.
It brings it all back to that daily motivation. Competition forces the seller to wake up thinking about you.
And that's the really critical piece for you, the listener. Because we know you fit that learner profile. You're curious. You're navigating this economy every day. And the relevance here is huge.
Absolutely.
Every time you open your wallet, you aren't just spending money. You're acting as the monarch.
You are deciding which businesses survive. You're deciding which horses are retired and which scooters are adopted. You are the one applying the pressure that keeps Sean toned.
It puts a lot of responsibility on that morning coffee purchase, doesn't it?
It does. It reframes consumption. It's not just, I want coffee. It's, I am directing resources toward this specific business model.
So I want to leave everyone with a final thought. We've been talking about this strictly in the context of buying products, lemonade, scooters, milk.
Mm-hmm.
The logic is crystal clear. Competition forces businesses to wake up asking, how can I please you?
It's a mechanism for responsiveness. It guarantees that your needs are the priority.
So here is the provocative thought to mull over as you go about your day. If competition is the only thing that forces that question, what happens to our quality of life in the areas where we can't vote with our dollars?
That is a heavy question.
Think about the systems where there is no scooter to switch to. Think about the services where you have no choice. Do those Seans wake up worrying about pleasing you?
Or are they selling you sourness because they know you can't go anywhere else?
If the mechanism of vote by exit is removed, does the service inevitably turn sour?
The theory suggests it does.
Something to think about the next time you're standing in a line you can't leave. That's it for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.